The BBC suspends the presenter accused of paying a teenager for explicit photos and contacts the police. The star, who's not been named, will not appear on air while the allegations are investigated.
We must all remember, as we're talking about this very difficult set of circumstances, that there is a person at the heart of this, someone who has made these allegations.
Also tonight, President Biden flies in to meet King Charles and the Prime Minister ahead of a key NATO summit. Record rainfall batters parts of India, causing devastating landslides and floods. England snatch a victory at Headingley to keep their Ashes hopes burning, and going out on a high. Elton John performs his last ever live show with a little help from a superstar friend.
This is ITV News with Romilly Weeks.
Good evening. A male presenter has been suspended by the BBC while it investigates allegations that a teenager was paid tens of thousands of pounds for explicit images. In a statement today, the corporation said it was made aware of a complaint in May, but allegations of a different nature were brought to it on Thursday. Earlier, the Culture Secretary, Lucy Fraser, confirmed she'd spoken to the BBC Director General and had been assured the matter was being investigated swiftly and sensitively. The BBC has now contacted the police. Carrie Davis reports.
With one high-profile presenter suspended and others desperately trying to defend their reputation, by this afternoon it was clear the BBC was in crisis. The Director General took action. In a statement, he said, "The BBC first became aware of a complaint in May. New allegations were put to us on Thursday of a different nature, and in addition to our own inquiries, we have also been in touch with external authorities, in line with our protocols. We can also confirm a male member of staff has been suspended." In today's Sun newspaper, more damaging claims. The mother of the alleged victim claims her child has received a total of £35,000 from the presenter, which she says fueled a drug addiction. "I've had 3 years of hell. The impact of this has been terrifying. In my mind, that man was supplying the crack." The demand from government is for answers, and quickly.
I very much encourage the BBC and expect them to come forward with an explanation as to what is happening. But also we must all remember, as we're talking about this very difficult set of circumstances, that there is a person at the heart of this, someone who has made these allegations.
And Labour today criticised the BBC's approach.
Look, it's incredibly concerning, as is the response of the BBC, who need to much more quickly investigate complaints like this and take it more seriously.
While the presenter remains unnamed, a media lawyer has warned against online speculation.
They're very serious allegations, and to be wrongly identifying people, firstly, is grossly unfair to the people involved who are innocent and nothing to do with this. People who do this and start speculating are themselves at risk of defamation claims, and they could be sued.
BBC bosses say they're in touch with the family at the centre of this scandal. The corporation, rocked by claims a vulnerable young person's life has been ruined by the alleged actions of one of their biggest stars. Carrie Davis, ITV News.
And I'm joined by our UK editor, Paul Brand. Paul, this crisis at the BBC escalated today.
Yeah, and Romilly, you've got to remember the BBC usually comes up with questions for others to answer. Tonight they are grappling with questions of their own, familiar questions, actually, in what I think is a sort of spreading level of scrutiny now about the kind of power that some presenters are able to wield in the media and whether that does lead to some destructive behaviours. There are similarities, though very important differences too here between this case and, for example, the case of Philip Schofield. The biggest important difference, of course, being that what's being alleged here is potentially illegal behaviour. But that sense of whether these presenters have too much power and the fact that this case was raised at at the time when Philip Schofield was in the headlines, I think piles more pressure on the BBC to explain how did it investigate in the first place, who asked those questions, who did it ask the questions of, and why did it take so long to suspend this presenter who's only been taken off air this afternoon. The BBC itself, though, if you read through all of their statements today, I think they're trying to get across what they believe is some of the nuance around all of this. They say, for example, that these are new accusations that have come to them since Thursday compared to the ones in May. They suggest that the family of this person has potentially been quite difficult to get hold of. And they point out that there is a privacy consideration here for the presenter involved. The presenter, it does deserve a fair process. But tonight the police have been called. No formal allegations have been made to the police yet, but they are involved and potentially they will ask questions that some feel maybe the BBC haven't. Right, Paul, thank you. President Biden is on his way to the UK this evening and will touch down later tonight. He'll meet the King at Windsor and the Prime Minister in Downing Street tomorrow. Our political correspondent Tom Sheldrick is there. Tom, plenty on the President's agenda.
Yes, we're expecting to see President Biden here tomorrow morning for a fifth meeting with Rishi Sunak in as many months. The President boarded Air Force One in Delaware earlier en route to Stansted tonight for what will be a flying visit to the UK. The White House have said it will further strengthen the close relationship between our nations, but the Prime Minister will have to decide whether to bring up the US President's decision to supply cluster bombs to Ukraine. There are concerns about their potential risk to civilians, and yesterday Mr Sunak reiterated that the UK discourages their use. Those weapons could also be a source of tension at the NATO summit in Lithuania, which both the Prime Minister and the President will attend from Tuesday. Before that, though, President Biden will also visit the King at Windsor Castle tomorrow. He was a notable absentee from the coronation in May, but when the two men met at the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow in 2021, the President praised Charles's leadership on the issue, telling him, "We need you badly." Tackling climate change will be on their agenda again tomorrow. And on that subject, unlike perhaps cluster bombs, President Biden will expect to see eye to eye with his host.
Tom in Downing Street, thank you. And the dramatic weather patterns reported around the world have devastated parts of India. Flash floods in the capital Delhi and in northern mountain regions swept away cars and houses and even knocked down bridges, bringing daily life to a standstill. And a dozen deaths were reported across the country's north. Callum Watkinson has more.
In India's remote north, rain is expected at this time of year, but not this much. The country is thought to have had the highest daily July rainfall for 40 years yesterday. Torrents of water turned roads into rivers of mud. A bridge which has stood for 50 years washed away. And those who live here know they will face challenges from this deluge long after the rains recede.
The situation is severe right now. So the flood water has disrupted transportation, electricity, communication networks, and leading to further challenges to affect communities. I never saw such rainfall in my lifetime. I never saw such level of destruction before.
In Delhi, a downpour that wreaked havoc on the roads was predicted by the India Meteorological Department to continue for a further 3 days. And the government's preparations based on past rainfall figures were tested to the limit.
It's normal for Delhi to receive 100 mm of rainfall within 24 hours, which we are prepared for. But today, we have had 150 mm. Now we are trying to deal with that.
Delhi is likely to recover quickly. In the remote mountain villages of Himachal Pradesh, though, the fear is once infrastructure goes, it stays gone. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Turkey has angered President Putin by allowing 5 Ukrainian commanders captured by Russia to return home. They were welcomed back in a ceremony in Lviv. Russia says by releasing the 5 men, Turkey has violated a prisoner exchange agreement, promising to keep them out of the country until the end of the war. President Zelensky thanked President Erdogan for bringing Ukraine's heroes home. On to sport, and England have kept the Ashes series alive by beating Australia in the third test at Headingley. On a tense and dramatic fourth day, England chased down their victory target to win by 3 wickets, leaving the series now 2-1 to Australia with 2 tests to play. Chris Scudder was watching.
Still smarting from the Lord's controversy, this time it was a different kind of tension. Chasing 251, England kept losing wickets. He has got him. And when the man who England have come to rely on, Ben Stokes, went too, it didn't look good.
It's been given!
After his Lord's stumping, if Johnny Bairstow was looking for some redemption, it never came. The Wizards of Oz had England in a tangle at 6 down. But somewhere over the rainbow there was a new hero waiting to rescue England, and the local Yorkshire boy Harry Brook battled his way past a half-century. He had Australia in such a spin, Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins almost collided trying to take the catch that finally got rid of him for 75. But England need not have worried. Mark Wood calmed the nerves with some lusty blows. A 6 and a 4, and the lid was almost blown off the old Ashes urn.
Nailed.
And how the England fans roared with approval when Alex Carey dropped a catch in the scramble to save the match. Chris Wokes saw England home with a gutsy 32 not out. Victory by 3 wickets, and the Ashes are still alive with 2 tests to play. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
At Wimbledon, the Russian Andrei Rublev is through to the quarter-finals of the men's singles. Rublev, who's playing under a neutral flag in the wake of the ongoing war in Ukraine, produced one of the shots of the tournament to help beat Alexander Bublik of Kazakhstan in 5 sets. At Silverstone, Max Verstappen has made it 6 wins in a row as he crossed the line first in the British Grand Prix. It's the second time the Red Bull driver has won at Silverstone. It was a good day for British drivers, with McLaren's Lando Norris coming second and Lewis Hamilton taking third. His Mercedes teammate George Russell finished 5th. And finally, after more than 50 years of live touring, including 5 saying farewell, Sir Elton John has performed his final concert on the road. The singer told fans in Stockholm they would remain in his head, heart and soul. Here's Jay Akbar with the singer's grand finale.
Last night we came to the end of the Yellow Brick Road. A golden goodbye to a lifetime of live performances.
You're in my head and my heart and my soul, and I thank you so much. I will never be touring again. I want to appreciate my family, my sons, my husband. You can tell everybody.
This was his song, his moment after 52 years of touring.
And the future you're giving me.
And this was his very first on US soil, a comparatively low-key performance in 1970. But he soon found his feet and iconic style. The sun had to go down eventually, and it set over Stockholm last night. Now we know Sir Elton loves a guest star, and they don't shine much brighter than Coldplay.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time.
From their own gig in Gothenburg, the superstars turned tribute band for one song before paying their respects to Rocketman himself.
From all the bands and all the artists that you've loved and inspired and helped, we just love you so much.
It's a good thing Chris Martin had words prepared, because Sir Elton John's fans...
I have no words right now because I haven't processed all the show, but it was amazing.
And just like that, Rocketman very slowly blasted off. It might be a long, long time before we see him again, but hopefully farewell isn't forever. Jay Akbar, ITV News.
What a legend. And that's all for now. I'm back with the late news at 10:15. Until then, goodbye.
Not everywhere will be cold today. Some places will be warm and toasty. Heinz Beans sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. We have seen a fair few lively thunderstorms, but the warnings are going to be slowly starting to ease away as we move through this evening and overnight. And in fact, things really start to calm down by the end of the night. It's largely dry and also, thankfully, cooler for sleeping compared to last night. Temperatures in the towns and cities still holding up into around the low to mid-teens, but that is mercifully cooler than it has been recently. Then we look ahead to the start of a brand new week. It's a beautiful start to the week, but don't hold your breath because we've got this lump of very unsettled weather starting to move in from the southwest. So generally it's a story of sunny spells and showers, but we do have some much heavier and longer spells of rain moving in and then spreading northeastwards for much of the day. I think just the far southeastern corner will probably stay just about dry. Temperatures here at their warmest 24 Celsius, but elsewhere around or just above average. See you later. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Heinz Beans sponsors ITV National Weather.